Hi, I'm JJ Conway, and I help hardworking women and a few good men build financial confidence and take ownership of their financial future. I'm cheering you on with education on financial literacy, smart investments, and passive income streams. Welcome to Ladies of Wealth. We do these live recordings every Thursday night, 9:30 Eastern, 8:30 Central, and we invite you to come in and ask your money questions, and then we we split up the live recording into the podcasts. And I know if you go out there right now, I know we got a lot of stuff missing. We had some copyright issues, and I thought we resolved them, but we didn't. And then they came up again. I thought we did, but we didn't. And so now my YouTube channel is not making any money, and I'm not happy about it. I'm on a probation, and I'm not happy about it. So we had some things we had to address. Okay. But we do the recordings on Thursday nights, and we encourage you to do that live. If you can't make it live, it gets broken up and eventually becomes part of the Ladies of Wealth podcast. And so if you just joined us, we just talked the last segment. We just talked the last segment for the last show. That segment will be its own show. We just talked about someone who gave up everything to care for their parents, but the parents don't want to help with the newborn baby. So if that's something you missed, go back and catch the last episode so you can get that. Today we're going to be talking about I gave up everything. Oh no, I just did that one. Uh, okay, today we're going to be talking about college funding. I'm confused about college funding. What's the difference between a 529 plan, pre-paid plan, pre pre blah? Okay, I'm confused. Wait, I'm confused about college funding. What's the difference between a 529 plan, a prepaid plan, a pre- I cannot say this today. All right, y'all. College funding. You got 529 plans. You got prepaid plans. You got Coverdells. Okay. You got other ways to give money to your kids and save money for your kids. Okay. You've also got, they didn't ask about this, but there's also the uniform gift to minors. And I forget there's another version of that uniform transfer. There's one that's a TA and one that's a GA. I know I'm a financial planner. I should know that off the top of my head, but I don't because I don't really recommend those. Okay. Not for the population I tend to serve. Okay. I tend to serve a lower income population, and there are more better tax advantage ways to handle that. Okay. There's better ways to handle that for the populations that I serve, especially if that parent has not already had a history and a legacy of teaching that child how to manage money. Because with the uniform gift to minors, or either one of those two plans, when that child hits a certain age, you got no control over that thing anymore. And I'm gonna be upfront with y'all. I didn't save all this money to have you spend it away partying. Okay. And how many of us have had family members that have sold away inheritances for pennies on the dollar because they wanted to go party with their friends, or because they didn't know how to handle money, or they didn't know the value of money? Okay. So this person did not ask about that. I'm just gonna mention that real quick. Uh, the reason certain people use the uniform gift to minors, is because there's no limits. There's no limits on how much you can put in there. The only thing is, and there's no limits on what you can do with it. So if your kid doesn't go to college, well, or the kid doesn't go to trade school, because it does work for trade schools well. If your kid doesn't go to college or trade school, then it's okay. You can use it for anything. It's a gift to them. It's theirs, which means when they hit the right age, depending on the market you're in and depending on their status and your status and filing, whether you claim them still as them or not, there's some tax thingies in there. Uh, Depending on all of that stuff, they turn 18, that money becomes theirs. Or if they're still under your, I forget what the technical term is, but if they're still under your umbrella for taxes and stuff, it could be as up to 25, but still, at 25, it's there. So you don't saved $100,000 because you thought, oh, I'm going to use this esoteric thing. Well, actually, let me rephrase that. If you can save two or $300,000 for your kid in one of these, you don't need the rest of the advice I'm about to give. If you can do that, go ahead and do that. But I'm just saying, I wouldn't give a 25-year-old that much money. You might do better to put it in a trust or something. Okay, but that's not what this person asked about. They asked about prepaid plans versus 529s versus Coverdells. Okay, And those of you who've been with me for, I'd say maybe 6 or 7 years ago, uh-oh, my little one's probably doing something over there. Um, I changed my mind about the Coverdell because I found out that there were some unique things you could do with the Coverdell. Okay. And recently, I have changed my mind about prepaid tuition. I used to not like prepaid tuition plans at all. Okay. So I'm going to give you what these three are: the prepaid, the Coverdale, and the 529. And then we're going to talk about which situations is best for which plan and which family. Okay. Prepaid tuition plan is exactly what it sounds like. You are basically prepaying the tuition for this student so that when the student goes to school, your costs are locked in. Now, when did I retire? I retired in 2020, so it was about a year or two before that. I looked in my account for my son, my 529 for my oldest son. I was nearly in tears. I had come from being $845,000 in debt to having enough money to cover the cost of his education at at his school, okay, or at any of the, well, not, I don't think LSU, but whatever the state schools were in Louisiana at the time, at that time, like 2019, 2018, whatever the state funding was, whatever the state tuition was for most of the schools he might have gone to. And I mean, it was just like tears, like, oh my goodness, if you can't heal from this car accident, you can afford to retire because you got money to send your son to college. Yay. Okay. And uh, that was it. By the time he graduated in 2024, that amount that was saved would barely cost 2 years of in-state tuition. The costs have exponentially grown. Well, depending on how you see it on the thing, exponentially grown. Okay. Exponentially grown. And so I used to not want prepaid tuition because my thing was you could invest that money in a 529 plan. And then if that child didn't go to school, you could roll it over to another child's plan. Okay. Or you could use it for yourself to go to school. Well, now, depending on your situation and depending on your school, you might want a prepaid plan. A prepaid plan is good for people where you know that your child either A is going to go to college and B, you know what school they're going to go to. Like y'all have a long legacy of going to A&M and you're pretty sure that your child's going to go to A&M. I was about to say A&T, Aggie Pride. Uh, well, then maybe you go ahead and do that. But my kids, they're non-conformable. The They will conform when they have to, but when mama pushes something, they resist. And so if mama was to have pushed a particular school, they would resist. Okay. That's just how my kids are. And you have to know the personality of your child. And my son, my oldest, originally wanted to go for mechanical engineering because he wanted to design race car engines. But he was like, after a year of this and all this math and all this theory, he's like, I really just want to go turn wrenches. And so now he's in a trade school. And it's funny because he's in the program. He's about a third of the way done. And he's like, I don't think the math is so bad. He's like, I really love this, but I don't think I want to do this every day for the rest of my life. And I was like, ding, ding, ding. So thankfully, his associates there can transfer into a bachelor's back at the school where he was, which is a blessing. That always doesn't always happen. But like, I would never have bought a prepaid tuition plan, even though I know how the costs have skyrocketed. Okay. And even though people are lobbying for the government to do something about it, it's just not it's just not something you can depend on. You can't depend on the government to help you. You have got to help yourself. Okay. And so, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that this kind of skyrocketing happened. But if you think back in the day when everybody couldn't go to college the way everybody could go now. And they changed some of the regulations and they changed some of the rules and the laws and the blah 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 that allows people to get admitted here and there. Don't you see there's a huge rise in privatized loans? Student loans are such a big business now, and those student loans are not bankruptable. Okay. And so we have to be very careful about those things. And if you know that your child is going to go to college, or a particular trade school, if you know that and you want to do a prepaid tuition, I'm not going to be mad at you as a financial planner because I don't know where that exponential growth in costs is going to stop. I know it wouldn't have been a good fit for my family. Okay. So the next one I want to talk to is the Coverdell Education Savings Account. The Coverdell, it's you can only put $2,000 a year into it, and that's per student. So if I put in 1,000 and my mom put in 1,000 and Cubby's uncle put in no. If I put in 1,000 and my mom put in 1,000, nobody else can put any more money in there for Cubby. And they can't open up another Coverdale for Cubby. That's it. You get 2,000 a year. So for a long time, I was like, no, thank you. We are not doing Coverdales because we need to put more money away than that if we're going to have a hope of paying for college. Okay. Because, I came from a background where if I didn't have money to go to college, if I didn't get accepted to the Air Force Academy, I wasn't going to college. I got accepted to the Air Force Academy. I got accepted to the SUNY schools like SUNY Plattsburgh, SUNY Potsdam. I got accepted into Syracuse University, which is where I actually really wanted to go. You know, it's so crazy. If I'd have gone to Syracuse University, to the business school that I got accepted to, Dr. Boyce Watkins would have been my professor. Ah, I really wanted to do that, but the Air Force Academy was a 4-year scholarship, a full ride scholarship, and Syracuse University gave me. This was in 1993, y'all, $20,000. That was a lot of money scholarship in 1993, but it was only 1 year with the option to renew. And while everybody was telling me, don't worry, they just automatically renew it as long as you keep your grades up, I was like, guaranteed full ride job and a job upon graduation in the military, which I was familiar being a military brat, versus $20,000 for the first year, which covered everything for the first year, but no guarantees for the rest of it. No. I actually did get full rides from ROTC for math, but I didn't want to do math. I wanted to do physics. I know physics is math, but physics is cool math. Math is boring math. Physics is cool math. Okay. If you're a mathematician, please don't hate me, but that's just how I felt. Not doing either one. Not doing either one of them now. Like I'm doing finance. Finance is emotions math, right? So, so in my world, when I first started out as a financial planner and a financial coach, in my world, Coverdale was not enough because I was going to need money to allow my child to go anywhere he wanted to go, and $2,000 a year wasn't going to cut it. Okay. Now, there are some really cool things that I now recommend Coverdale to people with specific skill sets. And not only because you can use it for more things and you can use the 529 plan for, which we'll talk about in a second. One of the things you can do with a Coverdale is you can use it for private school uh, before they go to college. And so that's the limitation that your 529 plans have. Is those are only used for college or post, what do they call that? Post-secondary education, where your college or trade school or something like that. Okay. The Coverdale, if I wanted to send my son to a private high school, I could use Coverdale funds for it. You're like, well, JJ, let me tell you something. At $2,000 a year max, you are probably not sending your son to private school. Don't I know it, y'all? When we were in Louisiana, my oldest, his private school was 970 something a month, and that was a year-round plan. I think you skipped 1 month. That was a year-round plan paying for that school on top of property tax, on top of all the other things. But in that instance where I was, it was worth it for him to have access to that more intense education. Okay. And so the thing is about the Coverdale that causes me to change my mind a couple years ago about this is that you can have what's called a self-directed Coverdale. You can't have a self-directed 529. 529 plans are run through the state. Pre-planned Prepaid plans are run through either the state or sometimes the college. I would recommend one run through the state if you can still find one. I shouldn't say it like that. I honestly did not look that up before I started here. I haven't heard much about them in so long that I'm not even sure most of those exist, but I know they do at the college level. But if you could get one that guarantees you at the state level, I think that would be a broader application to be better. But the thing about a Coverdale is you can do a self-directed Coverdale. So you can put $2,000 a month in there or $2,000 a year in there. And by the time your child is 10, right? Now you've got $20,000. And you know what you can do in a self-directed Coverdell? You can invest in real estate. And guess what's so cool about investing in real estate in one of these self-directed accounts? My self-directed IRA can partner with my son's self-directed Coverdell, and they can combine on a real estate flip. Now, even though my son's Coverdell might only contribute 2,000 this year, and my self-directed IRA might cover 100,000, and they go and do a $102,000 flip, we can set up the operating agreement such that my son's Coverdell gets all the profit beyond replenishing my IRA. Or if I got it like that, which I don't yet, but if I got it like that, I can set it up that my son's Coverdell gets all the profit or 95% of the profit or whatever it is. And so you can effectively, if you do solid research, I want to see if I can I draw this out? I don't think I need to draw it out. He put his Coverdell puts in $2,000. My IRA puts in $100,000. They go do a $102,000 flip and they sell that property for $250,000. Okay. So 102 from 250, okay, is 148. Okay, be with me on the math there. It's math in public. I might mess it up. I was a scientist for years, but sometimes I mess up math in public. But $148,000. And I can stipulate that my IRA, according to the agreement, my IRA is going to get 10% of the profits and his Coverdell is going to get 90% of the profits. Now I'm making the math in public hard because what that means is my IRA is going to get $14,000, $14,200, and my son's Coverdell is going to get the rest. So real quick, okay, 148 minus 14. I gotta have to do that on paper. Sorry. 148 thousand. Okay, so 148 minus 14 2 is 800 3 3 1. It's $133,000 and $133,800. $133,800. I took that 2,000 from the Coverdell and I did one flip, one very well placed flip. Most of us aren't going to get that kind of profit, and I turned it into over $100,000. Can you send your kids to school off of one flip per month that makes, or one flip per year that makes 130 something thousand dollars? Mm-hmm. Yes, you can. Now, am I going to recommend that for everybody? Of course not. You know why? Because all of us don't have the skill set to do one flip a month. We don't all have the team. I mean, a year. We don't have the team to do $100,000 in flip profits in a year. We don't have the skill set. We don't have a lot of things. Most of the people that come to me, they're trying to get out of debt. They're trying to get into their wealth. They're trying to get there. Now, I do have a couple of celebrity clients, and they're already there. And then we teach them this strategy, right? But if you know how to evaluate a property and you know how to go after properties that have big upswing and big profit, you can put your child to school on $2,000 a year plus whatever you've got in your self-directed IRA. And that's when the Coverdell makes the most sense for me. Doesn't mean it doesn't make sense in other use cases, but for the people that are in my list, most of the time we need more money, not more headaches. Okay. And so I like that. $133,800. You can go to private school on that pretty easy, can't you? Now, one thing that you do have to watch out for with the Coverdell is the money has to be used by age 30. The kid's age 30. Okay. The last one I'm going to cover is the 529 plan. And this is one where a lot of us are more familiar with. It's the traditional college savings plan. And the thing about the college savings plan is that you've got high contribution limits. How do I want to say that? There's no limit to what you can put in. However, if you hit a certain amount, you trigger the gift tax provisions and you might be obligated to gift tax later. Now, people get real scared about gift tax, but for most of us, gift tax isn't even going to come into play in our lifetime because we're not going to give enough gifts to hit the threshold where we actually have to pay the tax. We accrue the tax. The IRS says, you paid your son $30,000 this year and your gift tax, so now you've incurred this much amount of gift tax. Okay, but you don't always have to pay it. That's the thing. And we get so scared of stuff because we don't understand it. So this is definitely something, if you're thinking about doing this and you got it like that, this is something I definitely recommend talking with a tax advisor, because each spouse can give gifts to their children. Okay. Each spouse can get gifts to their children. Let me see what the rules are for 2026. Let me see if they've come out with that rules yet. Gift tax. I make sure I've got the amounts right. Um, yeah, gift tax exclusion 2026. I think it's up to, oh, okay. I would have been wrong. I thought it was 20. It's actually 19,000 now. Okay. It did not change for 2026. So it's $19,000. Okay. So each each parent can give their child $19,000 before they incur the gift tax. And if you give more, you may not necessarily have to pay that gift tax the year that you give the money. It may not accrue to be enough to trip the IRS, we want our money wire, until you die. Okay. Unless you really, really given a lot of gifts. Okay. And so, I mean, like we're talking millions. Okay. And very few, very few of us on here are doing that. Okay. Um, I wish we were though. Oh yeah, I wish we were. But think about that. $19,000. One and then 529 you can do up, you can front load up to 5 years. So I can do one, 19, 19, 19, 19, 19. Ooh, so that is $195,000 that I could put. I mean, no, no, no. I'm sorry. Math in public. That is $95,000. I'm still thinking about that house example. Like I made a really juicy example. I'm like, man, I wish I could do that in real life. I'm not that good of a flipper yet. I, I'd have to do about 3 or 4 homes to get that price where especially out where I live, where the prices being what they are. Anyway, let me say that again. Okay, so I could give my son $19,000 a year before I trip the gift tax in 2026. That's the gift tax numbers for 2026. It has not changed for 2025. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So that is $95,000 that I could transfer to my son into his 529 plan and not incur any gift tax obligation. And then my husband can do 20 or $19,000 a year. That's another $95,000. So between the two of us, we don't got it like that, y'all. Most of our holdings are things we can't reach just yet. Okay, so don't come after me for no money. I'm just giving you an example. All right, that's $190,000 we could plop into that account, or that's $190,000 that grandma and grandpa could plop into that account. And you know what you can do with $190,000 plopped into a 529 account when baby is born? You know what you can do in 18 years when baby goes to college? You can send them to just about any college you want. Just about any college you want. Yes, prices are going to go crazy. They've been going crazy, but I don't think they're going to go that crazy that you can't keep up with that. Okay. So, in my case with my oldest, we were putting in, we were putting in about 50 or so dollars a month, 50 or so dollars a month, and the account was like 40,000, 45,000 when I retired from the Air Force. Okay. So not quite the same thing. So this is why I highly, highly recommend that if you have a child uh that you want to set up a 529 plan, I highly recommend, instead of Christmas gifts and all stuff, especially if they're a baby. Y'all know babies don't need all that junk that we be buying for them. Okay. Especially if they're a baby, that you convince aunties, uncles, grandparents, whoever, to put that money into their 529 plan. Now, there's another interesting thing about 529 plans. Okay. The 529 plan, they have recently passed a new tax law that says if you don't spend the money, it can be transitioned to retirement funds. Oh, y'all, that's an amazing new benefit. Okay. It's an amazing new benefit. Okay. And so the reason, so you might say, well, why does the government want to encourage people to do this 529 plan? Because people are looking for any way they can do to get out of paying taxes. And when you put the money into the 529 plan, you got to pay taxes on it. The same way with the Roth. Why did the government come out with the Roth IRA? Because you pay taxes on the money you put into the Roth. You don't pay taxes on the money you take out of the Roth, and you don't pay taxes on the money you take out of the 529 as long as it's for legit educational purposes. But you do have to pay taxes when you get into that thing. And so if they can encourage you to stop putting money in tax evasion, in tax deductible, what is the word I'm looking for? I need an accountant to help me out here. If you can choose to put money into savings vehicles where you don't have to pay tax on that money, like your 401ks, you put money in your 401k, you don't have to pay tax on that money, okay? Or you could choose to put it in a Roth IRA. You pay tax on that money, you just don't pay tax later. With a traditional IRA or a traditional 401k or something like that, you don't pay taxes on the money you put in there. You can sock away a lot of cash without having to be taxed on it right now. But when you pull that money out, you got to pay taxes on the money you pull out. Well, the government has every vested interest in getting money from you right now. So they are making it easy and easy and easy for you to save money right now and then not have, because they want the money right now. They need more money right now. They want money right now. And this is why my original mentor, Larry Burkett, this is the reason why my original mentor, Larry Burkett, he did not like it when they came out with the IRA and the self-direct. My goodness, girl, get the terminology together. When they came out with that Roth IRA, he didn't trust it. He's like, you can't trust the government. You better get your tax deduction now. You get a tax deduction now by filling out your regular IRA or your regular 401k. Don't trust that Roth. And now it's like, man, I'm glad. I mean, I wasn't in a position anyway. I was in the military, but once I got able to do the thrift savings plan, I'll tell you what, I did do some traditional thrift savings plan, but then I put everything else in the Roth thrift savings plan. Okay. So yeah, that's something that's very important. Okay. But I want you to understand why the government's doing this, because a lot of times it's very easy to not trust. And that doesn't mean that we're not going to get, 20 years from now and the government's not going to change their mind again. I don't know what the government's going to do. My goodness, nobody could have predicted what the past year was going to be like. Nobody could have predicted that. I mean, okay, so somebody did write and say that all the things that have happened were things that he wanted to do, but nobody ever thought it was going to actually happen. Okay. And so, I mean, anyway, this is not a political show. I'm just saying. Okay. So we do have some concerns about that. Another thing about 529, you as the person who owns the account, you control where the money goes. That money never becomes the property of the child. That's one of the things that I liked about it, because if my children get to acting crazy, guess who gets their 529 money? Mama, who is a lifelong earner. I mean, lifelong earner. I hope not. Not unless it's passive income. Their mama, who is a lifelong learner and loves going to school and loves taking classes and would be happy to spend that money up. And now that they changed the tax code to put that into the IRA, I mean, into your retirement funds, ooh, you better believe. Hey, you don't want to go to college? Okay. You want to fool around and not do what you're supposed to do? Thank you. Thank you for your contribution to JJ Conway's retirement. Okay. Seriously though. That's one of the great things about the 529 plan. You can add beneficiaries to the same account. You can put some in, take some out, and you can change it however you want. The person in charge of the account earns the money, and multiple people can have 529 accounts for the same child. So remember, we talked about the Coverdell. You get 2,000 a year, and that's it. So you better coordinate with grandma. If grandma's going to do one, maybe y'all should work together and put all the money in one account so y'all can keep track of that, right? You don't want no tax hit later. You could get away with doing something wrong for a long time, but at the wrong time, the time when you really need that money, you really need some peace in your household. That's when the enemy gets busy. Oh, I see they have a tax problem here. Let's go ahead and get on them for that. Okay. So dot your I's and cross your T's on that. All right. The uniform gift to minors. Hey, you can want to do that. That's fine. But then once that child comes of age, that money is not yours anymore. You have no control over it. Okay. So each one of these things has a different up and a down. And it's important for you to understand what's going to be the best for your personal situation. Okay. Let me see. Did I cover everything on the 529? You have to spend it in certain things. You can't spend it on everything, but more and more things are becoming included. Okay, and I like that. Like more and more things are becoming included. Okay, uh, big one with the 529. 529 plans are not like IRAs or anything else where you can just go to like Vanguard or Chase or Fidelity or something and open up your own account. 529 plans are run through the state. Okay, and a lot of prepaid plans are also run through the state. Okay, 529 plans are run through the state. Depending on the state you live in, you might get a tax deduction by using your state's 529 plan. You might not, in which case you just want to go choose the one that has the best program at the time that you're choosing it, but you might get a tax deduction. So that's the first place you want to look, is you want to look at what concessions and what enticements and what benefits the plan for your state has. So for example, I was a military out of state in the state that when I was in, I was a resident of one state, and then I transitioned to being um, a resident of Florida. Well, Florida doesn't have, um, if you're not, if oh, I can't remember if Florida didn't have it. I know PA didn't have income tax if you were military out of state. So it didn't matter to me if I was in their plan or not. Florida, I can't remember if they just didn't have an income tax or if it just because I was military out of state. But either way, I didn't have to pay tax. So none of those state plans was going to help me anyway. So I picked the one with the lowest cost, which is not the one that it is today. The one with the lowest cost and the highest satisfaction rate is not the same as it was 20 years ago when I picked Phillips. Okay. For my little one, we went with the Texas one because the Texas one does give concessions that we thought were important for us being in Texas and most likely not moving from Texas until after Cubby goes to college, because my husband is a Texas educator and his retirement plan is the Texas educator's retirement plan, and we gonna be here for a while. Okay, I, I might travel around, but we basically is gonna be our domicile for a while. So you want to check that out. And my favorite place to check out the different plans is another one of my mentors, mostly from a distance though. I did get to meet him in person and I was so lame. I was fangirling so bad, but Clark Howard at Clark.com. He has a really good rundown. They keep it up to date, very much so, on what are the best 529 plans for your situation. And so I encourage you to go out there and pick the best one if that's the plan that meets your needs. Okay. Again, if you're really adept at real estate investing and you know you can take 20,000 and turn it into 40 with a flip, you can take 40,000 and turn it to 80. You can take 100,000 and turn it to 150. If you know you got it like that, you got a system and you know what you're doing, try the Coverdell. You can really maximize your child's funds that way, as long as you make sure it's spent the way it needs to be spent. Okay. Whew, well, that was fun. I hope you all got a lot out of that. Okay. I hope you all got a lot out of that. Well, I love to see people giving me comments that they are enjoying themselves online. I'm really happy you're there. I think it's so hilarious. We keep we're starting to get haters now on some of the comments, so I can't just blindly click them, which is a shame because it's hard for me to read them in the screen where they pop up. There's such tiny text. But I think I was gonna take them off, and then somebody told me, no, you want to leave the controversial comments too, because it helps you with your algorithm or something like that. So I said, okay, whatever. I'm not gonna take it to heart though. If you're listening to me as part of the podcast, we encourage you to join us live. I don't want you to not listen to the podcast because I need you to bump up my podcast ratings, right? And I need you to forward it to some friends, and I need you to tell people about it. But one of the things that I most enjoy doing with my subscribers is actually getting to interact with you live. And so that's so much fun. And we are going to eventually get back to where we're doing interviews again. We're already starting to line those interviews up. And when we do that, some of the Thursday night classes aren't going to be ported to the podcast. So you definitely want to participate in both if you're part of the JJ Conway tribe. I don't know what we're going to call that tribe, but we're going to come up with a name for it. All right. That's all I've got for you today. Y'all take care and be blessed.
Don't forget to like this episode, subscribe to the channel, and ask your question at ladiesofwealth.com.